Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description, and in every episode description, I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 5 of FX and Hulu's Reservation Dogs, entitled Housemaid of Bongs. You know, this show, it never truly feels serialized to me, so I didn't really expect to see the Maximus character again, but if you recall, Maximus is the guy that we met in Episode 2 of this season. We learned that Maximus has received electroshock therapy. He's been confined to a mental institution, which he seemingly regularly escapes from, as a result of saying that he saw things that most people wouldn't believe he saw, like star people with eggplants. This episode expounds on a brief story that Maximus told in the episode. When we found out that Bear was from O'Kern, he showed Bear a picture of him and his friends. I think I said when we found out. I meant to say when he found out. When he found out Bear was from O'Kern, he showed Bear a picture of him and his friends. And so we flash back in this episode to 1976 in O'Kern, and we see the events that seem to have spawned Maximus's visions/beliefs. We learn about the past of several characters we know from present day, and we can see how similar this group is to our current present day Res Dogs. And I mean, I think we were meant to catch that even in episode 2, you know, kind of like, oh, okay, this is his friend group. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but let's start with who we see in this episode, as most of these characters that we see are on the show. Oh, well, on the show. Everyone's on the show. These characters are older in the present day, and they're all people that we know. They play fairly minor roles, most of them, but in case you guys don't remember who these people are in present day, I just want to go over that real quick. So, aside from a young Maximus, obviously, who we met in episode 2, we also meet his 2 female friends, Irene and Mabel. Mabel, as you, I think, probably recall if you're a fan of this show, she's Elora Danan's grandmother. She passed in that incredible fucking episode, probably the best episode of Season 2. It was called Mabel. I think it was episode, I want to say, 4, 6, something like that. And then Irene is the woman who is currently Cheese's grandmother. The one who we discovered in the episode where he was supposed to get his glasses originally in Season 2. So that's Irene. And then we have Bucky, who you recall, he was the one that was sleeping on the bench, and he was reading a book about string theory in the episode where Cheese was doing that ride-along with Big. And then Big later pulled him over, and he tried to like slide into the passenger seat, even though he was the only one in the car. That was Bucky. He made the copper statue with the dicks. That was Bucky. He's the long-haired guy we saw in this episode. And then, of course, last but not least, of course, the knockout king himself, Uncle Brownie. And can we just talk about how good that actor was that played him? Like, if they never said his name and I just closed my eyes and listened, I'd have known it was Brownie. Like, that guy's impersonation of Brownie was spot on, man. Like, he sounded, like, I legit, is that, like, his kid or something? Because, like, that guy sounded just like Brownie. And speaking of the similar voices, the gym coach in this episode, did he not act, look, sound like Big? But like, I feel like that couldn't have been Big because that would make him older than all of those people because he was a teacher at the school. They were attending the school. That would make him older than Brownie, Irene, Mabel, who's now dead, Bucky, Maximus. And I don't know, I kind of feel like Big looks like he's like their age, if not younger. So I don't know, but that really sounded like Big. They just called him Coach the whole time. But man, if that wasn't meant to be Big, I don't know who the fuck that guy was. But anyway, we also meet a young Fixico, who is, we learn, is Maximus's cousin. And another actor who is great in impersonating older versions of the character, apparently, because just like Big and just like Brownie, this guy sounded just like Fixico. But yeah, so those are the major players that we meet in this episode. Well, we don't really meet them, but we meet the younger versions of them. So this episode opens at St. Nicholas Training School. This is the same school that we saw in episode 3. The Dear Lady episode. The episode where she's being abused. Same school. But now it's 1976. It's a bit more modern. You have fake Big as the gym teacher, so you don't have just like all white teachers here. You have a native teacher. It seems like a regular high school, aside from apparently they have dorms where the kids stay. Like, I feel like that's common in college, but not so much in high school. But you see it in movies every now and then. I've never personally experienced it, but these schools where, like, sadly, if a kid doesn't have somewhere to go for the holidays when everyone else goes home, the kids can stay there. There's a movie coming out with, like, Giamatti in it that's about the same concept. And Maximus, that's his plan, is to stay there at the school while everyone else goes back home. I think it's in between. Yeah, he said it's the end of his junior year. So in between junior year and senior year, that's the plan. And he doesn't want to go to his grandmother's house, presumably due to a beef that he has with Fixico. Everyone thinks it's over Mabel, who Fixico dated prior to her currently dating Maximus. But Maximus says it's more so about what I would interpret as class and status within the community. Fixico has status and respect to the community as an up-and-coming, what's the name of the medicine guy? Who the fuck did I look at? Like, I looked at, like, I was asking somebody, who's the medicine guy? I don't know, there's a name for, like, a medicine person. It's escaping me at the moment, but as an up-and-coming one of them, Fixico's pretty respected the community, and Maximus doesn't have that. His issue is less about what Fixico has and what he doesn't, but more so about the fact that he feels Fixico, I don't want to say entitled, but he's unappreciative of what he has, and he forgets that Maximus does not have that. And it's short, really. It just sounds like Maximus is jealous, justifiably jealous. Like, I could see that being something that you would feel a kind of way about, but jealous nonetheless, and nothing more than jealousy. Like Mabel says, like, I understand. I don't think it's right, but I get it. And that's how I feel too. So before everyone leaves for the summer, there's going to be this party, and Maximus is tasked with bringing acid to the party, which he fails to do. He could have gotten it for Fixico, but since they're on the outs, they're pretty much screwed until Fixico rolls up to the Sonic at the same time as the older generation Res Dogs. So Brownie scores the drugs for Fixico, and the kids smoke weed. They eventually take the acid tabs. Once high, Maximus and Mabel have the aforementioned combo that I mentioned earlier about Fixico. And then as they're leaving, Fixico rolls up to try to make amends. And he asks if they're good, they being him and Maximus. And he says that their grandmother misses him, and it says that he can come back home. And what I liked about that moment is that there's a possibility. The grandmother said nothing at all. I think we're kind of meant to glean that this is Fixico trying to extend an olive branch. He's kind of using the grandmother to save face. It doesn't matter, though. Maximus kind of snaps on him, says his medicine is poison, all this terrible shit, and he leaves. And as they're driving away, all the other kids are falling asleep. Maximus is driving because Brownie's too fucked up to drive himself. So they're driving away. All the other kids are falling asleep. Maximus himself looks like he's nodding off, which I think that was kind of interesting too, because any other show, you would think, oh shit, this guy's gonna fall asleep and something's gonna happen. But we know that everybody in that car lives. So I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, they crash and everyone's fine, but then why are we doing that? But what turns out happening is he sees a bright light, Maximus, and he gets out of the car and he sees what appears to be a star person in like a sauna suit. There's a massive alien ship overhead and some sort of like 3-dimensional like diamond type shape. It might not have been a diamond, some sort of figure, 3-dimensional, looked like it was like glass kind of texture, see-through. All of this instantly vanishes as quickly as it arrived, and we're left to wonder if this actually happened, or if Maximus was so high on acid and possibly fell asleep that he imagined it all together. His friends don't believe him, and Brownie hilariously says he made it to the moon, which is a callback to what he'd been saying the entire episode. But in a lot of ways, it's a really sad scene because, for starters, his friends don't believe him, and they make fun of him, just like they made fun of his dream of being a filmmaker earlier in the episode. In episode 2, when Bear tells Maximus that he sees spirits, Maximus immediately asks him, like, do your friends believe you? And he's like, yeah. But and as similar as Maximus' group is to the Res Dogs, that's where they differ, right? Because his friends don't support him, and Bear's do. And that's the other sad part of this scene. We know how Maximus ends up: electroshock therapy and mental institution. So it's I don't know. I don't want to say concerning, but like it's I don't know. I think it's an interesting aspect to look at. The idea that Maximus felt like he saw something that no one else would believe that he saw. His friends clearly did not believe him. They gave him shit about it, and now look where he ends up. Conversely, Bear is having the same situation with Willie Knife. I think most his friends believe that he sees Willie Knife. They don't really give him shit about it, not in that kind of way. And I wonder if that's that we're gonna see that kind of juxtaposed, Bear's path versus Brownie's path. I'm sorry, Maximus' path. Let's see. So where was I? Yeah, I have this exact thought in my notes. The show's played around with the idea that could be Bear's path. But I think the lesson here is going to be that Bear's going to have the support system in his life that Maximus didn't have, and that's why ultimately he won't end up in a mental institution or locked up. I think when they say locked up, they mean locked up in a mental institution, but they've been hitting Bear hitting Bear with that a lot this season, and I hope that his friends are going to come through and help him with that. So, while I did enjoy this episode, it was a bit uneventful, just like last week's episode was, but last week's episode was chock full of humor, and this one wasn't. And I think this one could have been a lot better if it included more of a direct connection between Maximus and Bear. Like, right now, the connection is there, but it's kind of loose, right? Like, how will Maximus' story help us make sense of Bear's path? Like, is the issue with Maximus and Fixico going to be tied to the forthcoming rainstorm that Fixico talked about last week? Does Maximus know that Mabel died? That's interesting, right? Like, I didn't even think of that. Well, I mean, I didn't think of it until I found out who he was, but, like, that's an interesting point. Like, does Maximus know that Mabel died? If so, did he have the means to get there? It didn't. If he doesn't, like, who's going to tell him? I'd be interested to see more Maximus' story, but only if the payoff somehow connects to the present day and it's worth it. Like, maybe next week Bear will talk about running into Maximus, and then maybe we can learn some more from Brownie about who Maximus was. I don't know, but all in all, I thought this was an enjoyable episode. Like I said, every week I enjoy spending time with these kids, and even though it wasn't the same kids, it still kind of felt that way. But all the aunties and uncles. But it felt more like its purpose was to provide context for things that we're going to learn later. And that's fine. And I feel like these first, we're 5 episodes in, so we're about halfway. We're not about halfway. We're halfway. I have a strong feeling that these back 5 episodes are going to be really fucking good. And these first 5 episodes are really just setting up a lot of that stuff. Now, again, I'm not saying all 5 episodes were set up. There's been great stuff. All these episodes have been good. But it really feels like this one in particular was meant to set up a lot of shit that's going to pay off later. And it's going to make those moments extra special. But it does make this specific episode feel a little uneventful. But like I said, at the end of the day, I enjoy my time with this show. I enjoyed this episode. I would say it is the least of the 5 that we've gotten so far. But, and I'm not going to call it bad, but a bad Reservation Dogs episode, which this is not, but a bad Reservation Dogs is still better than a lot of what else is on TV. I don't even want to say the worst. The least of the 5 episodes is still better than a lot of what's being put out nowadays. So, Let me know what you guys think about what they're setting up, these parallels between Maximus and Bear, their respective friend sets, how you think that's going to play out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 6. And until then, peace.